Without further ado, we'll start walking through our supplies. I'll show you the original and we'll get started. So, first thing we're going to do is we're just going to look at this painting. This is what we're painting today. Little Porg. He's from Star Wars. I don't actually know when they started showing them. I think it was Return of the Jedi on the island that Luke Skywalker was on, but could have been earlier. I'm not 100% sure, but they are from Star Wars, so I figured we'd do another Star Wars thing. So, let's see, episode 8. There we go. Thank you. I think it was one of those, but yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and start running through our supplies here. As always, we have a few brushes. We have a large brush, or 3/4 inch to 1.5 inch, something like that. It can even be a huge brush. Again, just something that can cover a large area without being too messy. I usually try to use, this is probably the biggest brush that I use. You can see the difference in size, but just something big enough. It's about 3/4 of an inch to an inch wide. I always use this brush. Now I got a medium brush. That's some paint on it. Got a medium brush, medium round. It's about a 6. Anywhere from 6 to 10 should work, or 4 to 10 should work. But anything below a 6, I would consider a detail brush. But it's up to you also. And then I also have my dedicated detail brush. So I have, sometimes they have the numbers on them, sometimes they don't. So don't be worried if they don't have the numbers. Just make sure that, one, they're all kind of spaced out. Your largest one is, you can cover a wide space with it pretty quickly. Your medium one is for filling in medium shapes and kind of sketching, I guess you would say. And the tiny one is for details, just for detailing. So as long as you have those few brushes, you should be fine. You can use your own brushes also. I tend to typically use just these 3 brushes, just for a challenge for myself. But sometimes when I'm painting bigger commissions or different paintings, different styles of paintings, I'll end up using my nicer brushes, different sizes, different shapes. So it's kind of up to you. Whatever brushes you have, that's what works. So we're gonna go ahead and get into it. The very first thing that we are going to do, this is the most important part here. I thought a lot about painting either the shape out of the Porg first and then the background, but I think, or excuse me, vice versa. I thought about painting the whole entire background first and then the Porg on top. And I feel like that might be kind of difficult because we would have to paint around, you can't see up here, but we would have to paint around the actual shape, and that's really hard to do. So what's going to end up happening is we're going to paint the whole entire background with a light blue or whatever color you want to. You can use black. I don't mind that, of course. You can use black, you can use whatever color you want, but I'm going to go ahead and do the background first with my large brush. I always like to wet the canvas first. So I'm going to go ahead. You can either take a spray bottle. Sometimes I use that just real quick. That does it almost immediately. But if you don't have a spray bottle, you can get one eventually. But I just go back and forth from left to right, back and forth from left to right. Make sure you're not going right to left. No, I'm just kidding. So keep going back and forth all the way down your canvas. So I'm going all the way to the bottom. After about 5 to 7 brush strokes across, you'll probably want to go back into your water in order for you to sufficiently cover your whole entire background, with water. It does tend to get a little bit messy, but it's okay. It's just water. So go ahead and do that real quick. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we do absolutely want to have water on there. so we can spread around our paint. That's why we put water on there first. And anytime if you come to my private class, or not private classes, public classes at restaurants, or if you do a house party, you'll see that I always put water unless we're doing a shape first. So that's kind of that's going to help us dry our paint faster, and it's also going to help us spread around our paint, make some blends and stuff like that. So whole entire canvas. What I'm going to end up doing is putting some colors onto my plate now. And what I want to be the background, at least for my painting, is going to be blue. Got some blue paint here, so I'm going to put some blue. Totally running out. I have a lot more in the car, but I don't want to go to the car. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of blue on there. I'll probably end up adding a little bit more of this golden just because I have it. It's cobalt blue, but it'll do. It'll do enough for right now. So I'll put blue on my plate, and then I'll also put white because I want to make sure that my blue background is going to be a bright blue. I want it to feel like daytime. Again, you can make it any color you want. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a light blue. So after you've done your whole entire background with just water, sometimes it'll dry right away, but what you can do is put your brush back inside the water and scrape it off a couple times. I always like to scrape off my brushes instead of wiping them off on a paper towel, because you always want water on your paintbrush. You never want it to be dry, because it'll create kind of a weird texture and it'll be hard to spread your paint around where you want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip into both my white and my blue, and I'm just going to start going down my canvas. Back and forth, long brush strokes. You can see I'm doing all the way from left to right, to left to right, right to left. All the way back and forth and back and forth, going all the way down my canvas. Now, this doesn't have to be done really quickly. I just tend to do it quickly because when I'm painting by myself, I like to get right back to whatever's going to go on the foreground. So my subject, which is going to be the Porg. So remember, you can use a little bit of water. If you use too much paint, everybody, if the paint is too thick on your canvas, it's going to take a really, really, really long time to dry. And sometimes it'll take like more than 20 minutes, which is, it's a really long time for acrylic. But sometimes it can take like a full day if you have too much on there, or it could not dry at all. So make sure that you're pressing down, not too hard to where your canvas is going to fall off, but you're pressing down enough to where you're spreading out the paint, you're moving it around. Nothing special, just back and forth. You can make it a little bit wavy if you want to. You can see on my canvas, you can make it wavy. Very subtle, but it does add a little bit of, intrigue to your background, I guess you could say. Makes it look more like a sky, maybe. But I'm just going all the way down from top to bottom. There we go. It's done there. This will take you a second here. So I do these really, really fast, but it doesn't need to be done that fast. It's just a tendency that I have to do it as fast as humanly possible. So there we go. A little more white here. Some white here. Yeah. So once you've gotten to the bottom of your canvas, or depending on where you're working, you've covered the whole entire thing with your paint. Once you have done that, everybody, go ahead and put your brush inside the water. We're going to take a break right away right now so that our background can dry completely. So we just want to make sure that this is completely dry. Again, if you're not done yet, don't worry about that. But a nice tip is if you have already gone down your entire canvas, try your best not to go back and keep adding, paint on top of paint that hasn't already dried, because it'll just extend the drying time. And since this is a live class, then I usually try to keep drying time down. So another way you can control that is if you have a blow dryer. I usually turn it to the highest temperature. Mine only goes to 250, which is not that hot. It takes a while to heat up too, but on low power, just hitting it for about 2-3 minutes usually will dry it pretty quickly. So if not, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to leave this for about 10 minutes, everybody. Just 10 minutes. Go ahead and finish up what you've got. Put your brushes inside the water. And I'm just going to leave this live here. So if you want to go get a drink or a snack or something like that, you have to go to the bathroom. You're more than welcome to. But in about 10 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and come back here and start back up on the painting that we've got. So 10 minutes from now, see you then. If you don't already have black and white, that's pretty much mainly what we're going to be using. I mean, there's a little bit of kind of this orangish yellow color, this kind of golden color here. But pretty much just black and white is what you're going to need next. So you could go ahead and grab that, wait about a few more minutes here, and yeah. See, okay. I'm probably just going to hit this with the blow dryer in just a second here. Let's see. I'm going to turn it on mute real quick. But I'm just going to hit it with my blow dryer for about a minute. It's so close to being dry. The reason that it's not dry, actually, this might actually help you out or set you back. But I have the air conditioning on in my house right now. So the paint doesn't dry very well in colder weather. It does take a long time. In hotter weather, this thing just cooks. And it dries really, really quickly. Usually dries within 5 minutes. So I'm just gonna hit it with the blow dryer really quickly. Bear with me, it should take like a minute. How in the heck do I mute? Oh. Alrighty, super quick. Yeah, sometimes when the, like if you have your air conditioning on, then it creates more humidity. So it's harder for the moisture to be sucked out of a painting into the air if there's too much moisture in the air already. When it's hot, typically it's dry out here in California, so the moisture is just totally evaporated. It's gone. So it did take about 12-13 minutes, I want to say, but we are ready to move on. So what I recommend doing next is grabbing your medium brush. Let's call this medium brush. So go ahead and grab your medium brush. We're going to grab some white paint, everybody. White paint. Click this off here. Go ahead and grab some white paint. And we're going to start drawing out our proportions here. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but you can see that the overall shape here is kind of like a peanut. It's almost like a thick bowling pin. If you want to tell yourself or give yourself a couple of shapes here, this top part right here is a circle. This is just a circle. It's a little bit overlapping this bottom part. I felt like an oval did a pretty good job, but you can actually see the egg shape all the way through the top of the mouth here. So if you wanted to just draw an egg for this next part, you'd probably be a lot better off. But where I'm going to start here, if you're using a 16 by 20, you can go by the hand measurements, or you can just kind of draw it however you want, proportionally on your on whatever canvas you have. But I'm going to start about 4 fingers above the bottom. So again, if you have a different canvas, doesn't matter. Just make sure that you are centering this the best that you can. That doesn't even matter too much. Mine's not perfectly centered either. But I'm going to go ahead and make a dot down here at the bottom, trying to center it the best that I can. I just made a dot at the bottom. And what I'm going to start doing is trying my best, very lightly, to draw an egg shape. Now, since this is just white, there's a lot of, there's a lot of room for error. I think that if you start on one side and come up, and then start on the other side and come up, that's probably going to be your best bet. Now you can stop wherever you want to. The taller the egg that you have, the taller the torso is going to be from the bottom all the way up to kind of the middle of the neck here. So I'm just going to show you how that looks on here. I'm not going up. I'll probably go up a little bit more than halfway, try to center this. So it's, yeah, I think like right there. Again, if you're using a 16 by 20, I'm about the height of my hand or so. You'll probably have to go over this a couple of times. And it won't really matter because we're going to put colors over top of these outlines anyway. So you won't be able to see. You won't be able to see all of these outlines after you've done it. So what I'm going to end up doing here is, it's pretty much an oval. But it's it's really more of an egg shape, if I'm being honest. If you can't nail the egg shape, don't worry about it. But he is pretty wide. You can actually see that I can only fit 4 fingers in between the left and the right, not including his wings, his arms here. And this looks pretty wide down here, but I can fit a whole hand still, plus some fingers. So I want to make sure that I'm coming all the way out here and then coming back at the bottom, just to ensure that all of the proportions, are the way that I want them. You will have room at the end to kind of fix this up, or at the end of doing these shapes to kind of fix this up. But I always try to get as close as I possibly can to the proportions that I want. That way I don't have as much cleanup work at the very, very end of my painting. So you can do that. Now this next part, what you're gonna do, if you have this shape already, right on. Otherwise, this is gonna be up for a second here. So what I recommend is grabbing some more paint. I'm just gonna sharpen this up. Grabbing some more paint, and what we're gonna do is do a circle on top. Doesn't have to be a perfect circle again, but it's gonna sit kind of on top. It's gonna overlap with the top of this shape here. So it's gonna overlap kind of right here. I don't wanna be too close to the top because again, the proportions will look a little funky. But I'm creating like this funky looking snowman here. But you can see where I'm headed as far as the structure. Let me move this. As far as the structure, the base structure for my Porg here. There we go. So that's pretty much where I'm headed. Just do the best you can with those. It's not the biggest deal if you don't get the proportions absolutely just right. I think I made this head a little bit too wide. But for those of you who are experts, you know how wide the head needs to be. But it's kind of close to the outside of the body shape. More or less there, it's a smaller one and a bigger one. Alrighty. So it looks like everybody's about there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually connect the outside of the top shape to the outside of the bottom shape. So this is the top shape, bottom shape. What I'm gonna do is I probably just connect it with a straight line, honestly. It doesn't need to be um, like contoured into the neck because he doesn't have that body shape actually. So I'm just connecting the sides. So there we go. So you can see what I did here, everybody. I'll go over that one more time real quickly. I just connected the sides here. Whoops. Just connected the sides. All of this is going to be filled in, by the way. So don't worry about how it looks inside. Now the legs, or excuse me, the arms were a little hard for me to get just right. I still don't think they're just right, but you can see actually on here that I had to go over with blue. You can see a little bit gray in here, but I had the arms all the way down here. So I did have to make them shorter. So I would make them short to start with. I made a mistake there. You should always make things shorter or smaller in the beginning so you can work up to a larger shape to increase your chance of proportionalizing your subject, whatever it is you're painting. So got some white here. And I'm going to start these arms pretty much right where the top circle and the bottom circle intersect. So if you were to look at where these intersect, where they meet, it's right here. I'm going to draw an arrow since we're not even going to see the inside here. You don't need to draw that arrow, but I just want you to see this is where they intersect. So my dot, where I'm going to start my arms, is going to be directly adjacent to that, right across. So it's going to be right here. I'm going to start the arms right here on both sides. So I'll just come out like that. Now you don't have to have like a really long extending line, but what I'm going to do is create kind of this fin shape. It's going to remind you a lot of a penguin. I'm sorry if it's a little frustrating. It was frustrating me at the beginning too when I was painting this. Like, oh my gosh, this looks just like a penguin, but that's pretty much what they're supposed to be, in that universe. So if it's kind of looking like a penguin, then you are absolutely on track. So you're coming out with these kind of straight and then curved lines at the bottom. And you can just come back up and meet with the body. You can see here I got kind of this torpedo looking shape. So I'm doing that on both sides, everybody, both sides. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect right now. This is pretty much all just a sketch. We're going to do the eyes right now and the mouth too, but you're not even going to be able to see any of that. I mean, more or less, it's not really going to show up here anyway, so don't worry about that too much. Now, what I want to do is we pretty much, you can just draw like lines at the bottom for your legs, just so you can see where they might be. They don't have to be perfect. Just do little skinny lines. But we want to just get our shape down. So that's our basic overall shape. If it doesn't look like a porg, you're on track because it's not really supposed to right now. But you can see, right, that shape versus this shape. We're definitely on track. Right, and I can actually touch this up, but more or less you can see that we're on the right track here. Now what I'll do is, just with the same brush, because it doesn't have to be a lot of detail, I'm going to start drawing the eyes. Now they're actually a lot closer to the top of the head, realistically speaking. I put them a little low. They're kind of in the middle of the head. I actually want them to be a little bit higher. So this is the nice thing about drawing things out especially structures like if you're doing Mickey Mouse or another cartoon character, then you'll be able to tell. Like if you put them here, you'll be like, okay, I know I want them to be here. I'm just going to trace this, or I'm going to draw out my shapes, and I know I want them to be a little bit higher. So when you go to do it, um, the real one time around, what you can do is you can just move them a little bit higher. So it'll be a lot easier for you to see where you need your shapes to be. So close to the outside of the head, close to the top of the head. They're kind of slanted ovals. You don't have to fill them in. This looks so funny. But doing this, drawing out your shapes like this, is absolutely your best bet to getting any shapes that you're doing, any subject that you're doing, to look exactly the way that you want it. So we've got our eyeballs here. A little bit wonky, but it doesn't really matter. Anytime that you think it looks a little bit wonky like that, again, it doesn't really matter because we're going to paint over in just a second here. Now, what I like to do is this is a really fun painting for me to create, and it will be for you too, because the rest of this painting is pretty much wet on wet style, meaning that you don't really have to wait for anything to dry. The last thing that we're going to need to wait to dry is probably for the eyeballs, not even the mouth. So what I'll end up doing right now is covering this whole shape. The whole inside of this shape is going to be covered with white. So you can actually switch back from your medium brush to your large. Make sure it's washed off all the way. I usually stamp my brushes at the bottom of my cup here. Stamp, 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 stamp 10 times. Take it out and scrape it off. Make sure you scrape it off a good amount of times, everybody. You don't need to use paper towels, but scrape it off a good amount of times. And then what you can do is grab some white and fill this whole thing in. You can choose to go over the eyes if you want to. I probably will, just because I know where they need to be, but you can still see them even going over with white. So other colors are going to be mixed in, mostly black paint. But yeah, you can see that I'm just filling this whole thing in. Whole thing in. Long brush strokes or short brush strokes are okay. That's kind of up to you. The texture is not really going to come through until the very end anyway. So long brush strokes, short brush strokes, either way. But just make sure you're filling this all in the best that you can. Top a little bit. So there we go. Again, everybody, you're just filling this in. I'm going to tilt this up a tiny bit so you can see we're pretty much on the same track. Actually, I'm just going to hold it down here. I mean, we are exactly, not pretty much, we're pretty much on the same track as far as structure. I can already see that I'm going to want to make the head a little bit wider. But if you want to leave your head more narrow, it's not really going to make a difference. I think they look a little bit younger if their heads are wider. Um, but again, it's kind of just a personal preference. So you can see actually through me here if you want to make it wider. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. For those of you who are curious as to if you should be making it wider, the head, I'll show you what that looks like here. So I'm just going to be starting from the top here, actually, going a little bit wider and connecting up with the arms, the wings, the fins, whatever you want to call them. So just a tiny bit wider might make a lot of difference. Yeah, I actually think I like that a lot more. And you heard me at the beginning too. I said, I think I'm going to want it to be narrower, but I just didn't think it looked right. So I changed it up. Didn't need too much, but yeah. So whenever you're done, go ahead and drop a comment in the chat. Just say done, thumbs up, whatever you want, just so that I know that you're done. So I've seen a couple people cycle in and out. If you are still, or excuse me, if you couldn't attend this whole class, or if you know people who wanted to attend this class but couldn't because they were doing other things, this will be uploaded, everybody, to the YouTube channel that I have. It's going to be in my bio, probably about, I want to say, 30 minutes after we're done here. So about around 5:30, it should be up, and you should see the link there. But yes, for people that you know want to do this, or if you have to leave, this is going to be recorded. So don't worry about having to leave or not having to be here. That's okay. So again, for anybody that's done, go ahead and type done or give me a thumbs up in the chat. Thumbs up, awesome. Thank you, Jackie. Great. Awesome, that is looking great. Very nice. Very, very nice, cool. It's so cool. I like the lighter blue, like the teal background too. I actually wish I would have used the teal. Very awesome. That's awesome. I love the face too. How cool. 2 more minutes, Ariana. Okay, that's fine. Very nice. No rush, everybody. Remember not to add too much more white. We're actually going to create a lot of texture out of all this stuff here, so don't worry about it too much. So I'll give you about a couple minutes here, maybe 2 more minutes from right now, and then we'll get started on finishing it up, adding the final colors. Done. Awesome. Thank you, Natalie. I think that's about everybody. Ariana, are you still working? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm done. Cool. Okay, I think that's about everybody. Kennedy, Partida Fam. I think you guys are done, right? Yeah, good. Okay, cool. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. Excellent. Okay. So I think, oh, perfect, Kennedy. Perfect timing. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Probably won't be using the large brush again or too much more. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my medium brush. You can scrape it off a bunch of times. It's pretty important that we don't have any water on our brush right now. If you have a towel, like this is what I use for drying off my brushes. Oh my gosh, I have so many palettes back here. So many palettes. But I have just like an old towel. This is what I use for my paint. I just dedicated this. I never have to use paper towels again, which is such a nice, such a relevant and such a nice thing to have in mind while painting. So what I'm going to do, medium brush, and I probably won't use too much white again also, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start mixing a gray color. We might need, I don't want to say a ton of this, but we will need a lot. We will need a lot. So I would mix about, I don't know, like a teaspoon of white and a teaspoon of black together. Yeah, I think that's the best. You'll probably need more than that, but there's a case that you won't. There's a chance that you won't. So I'm just going to grab 2 big scoops of white and mix them together with 2 big scoops of black. So we got a 1-to-1 ratio here. This is going to be our, you know, for our wings and the top of the head. You can see up there, wings and the top of the head are almost, they look like they're black, but they're just a really dark gray. So I got a 1-to-1 mixture here. Got a 1-to-1 mixture. I just mixed up my colors real well. Don't worry about washing off your brush or anything. We're going to use this color right now. So what I'm going to end up doing is starting from the bottom of my wings, and I'm going to flick upwards. I'm going to kind of flick upwards and to the right a little bit. I'll show you exactly what that looks like in just a second here, but you're filling in the whole entire part of the wing, but you want to be doing just upward brush strokes. You're going to have kind of an urge to want to paint downwards. I promise you, you'll have better results if you are just painting in an upwards direction. Just upwards brush strokes, and you're flicking your brush. If you can still see, actually, my circle that I did originally, this big old circle for the body, I'm kind of following this curve here when I flick, and then I'm also blending it in with kind of the head a little bit. You don't want it to go too far. We are going to blend it a little bit more with white if we don't have it the way that we want it to be. But I am flicking up a little bit. You see that it's kind of transitioning here because I'm, I guess, forcing it to transition from one color to the other. So it's gray with the background color underneath, which is going to be white. There we go. Arms looking good. Fill in a little bit of white there. There we go. Perfect. There we go. We got those wings right on. Now, if you've already done the wings, you can go ahead and move on. Otherwise, if you're still working on them, go ahead and keep working on them. But I'm going to go ahead and do the top of the head with gray, and I'm going to do flicking upwards also, upwards into the left, upwards into the right, um, but just at the top of the head. And you can go outside of your shape too, because they're kind of fuzzy little creatures. So you can add fuzziness at the top to your discretion, or at your discretion. But it should pretty much only be on the top of the head, at least from what I've seen. I just have it up here, and I just have it on the wings. This is for the dark gray. And you can see on the top there, I have it just here, and then I have it on the wings. And I have a little bit down here. That's probably going to happen at the very end anyway. But for now, just focusing on these two pieces, the wings and the top of the head. Wash off your brush if you want to. Now, once you're done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my medium brush again. You can wash it off, or you don't have to really if you don't want to. But we're going to use virtually the same color here. But I'm going to add one scoop of white, a big scoop of white to my dark gray color. Big scoop of white to my dark gray color. So now I'm going to have a lighter gray. You can do two if you want to. If you feel like it's not that much different, you can do two. But I want it to be a very, very light gray. Got a little bit of blue in there. Oops. But you can see the difference in my dark gray and my light gray. It's almost white. I mean, it's not almost white. It's pretty bright though. So light gray, I added two big scoops of white to my dark gray mixture. That ensures that I have a really light gray to work with here. You can always add white over top of this too, so don't worry about that too much. If you want your porg to be mostly white, everybody, rather than gray, then what you're going to do is this step that we're doing here, and then you're going to add white over top. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. So all I'm going to do is downwards brush strokes now, just for the whole body here. So I'm going to start here and do small downwards brush strokes. So we're creating texture here, texture, texture, texture. You can leave spaces in between. I guess you could use your smaller brush if you wanted to. It might take a long time. But I'm just creating texture here. Just creating some texture. Straight down, flick, 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 flick. Helps if you make a sound effect. And again, if you want it to be brighter, like I'm gonna want mine to be in the end, you're gonna be adding a white over top of this gray to make sure that we're keeping the texture there. It doesn't just all look like one gray blob. I'll show you the original in just a second. Make sure you're going with the shape of the body. Grab some more paint. So again, everybody, this is going to take a second for you to finish. Again, I always try to tell everybody not to be rushed, not to feel rushed. I usually just paint as quickly as I can because I'm anxious to move forward for my own sake when I'm painting by myself. But in classes, it's just a habit. But you don't need to be moving at lightning speed. Right on. Okay, cool. It kind of looks like a little robin now. Now, what you can do is, this is going to make it a lot easier to put the golden color where you need to on the head. Again, if you're still working, no rush. But on the head, we're going to need this golden color around the eyes and lower on the forehead here. So all of the gray that you're using right now, you can make more if you need to. Otherwise, the gray that I'm using right now, I want to be putting pretty much all over besides these parts of the head next to the eyes. So what I'll do here is make sure I'm still doing flicking down. You're kind of blending it in with your, what are those called? Wings, arms, whatever you want to call them. You can go over where the eyes are. Remember, just keep flicking down with that texture. I know it seems really tedious. I promise you, you're not going to destroy your painting. We're actually going to add white over top. If you didn't remember, we are going to add white over top so that we can continue the texture. You can really just do it over the whole thing, but if you want to preserve the kind of the shape for the eyes right there, you can kind of leave that. That's okay. But yeah, this is pretty much all of the white space on the outside now, on the outside of where the eyes would be. That is going to be that golden color that we're going to add next. Okay, cool. Cool. So it should look like kind of like a baby owl right now. Should totally look like a baby owl right now. You can see where I'm headed here. So most of this is going to be covered with white. And it's going to be a lot easier because we're going to use, all of this is going to be dry. It's not going to be mixing anymore. So it'll be really easy to bring this to a lighter shade. So go ahead and put some, if you have this sienna color, you can just use this. This is kind of like a mustard color. For the sake of the video, I'm going to mix it so I can show you that it can be done. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of yellow, equal parts of yellow and orange. If you don't have orange, use a really small amount of red and you should be okay. There are so many ways to create this color brown. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use equal parts yellow and orange. Mix that together here. Ooh. It's not good orange. There we go. Ooh. So a funny thing just happened here. If you let orange paint sit for too long, it gets kind of this weird texture. So it's kind of the texture of guacamole right now. Be careful about orange. Sometimes that tends to happen. Not all the time, but sometimes. So what I mixed is equal parts orange, yellow. Then I'm going to do a little bit of white and a little bit of black, and that should pretty much bring me to where I want to be as far as the color. Um, it's kind of a tan color, actually. So this is what I've got. So you can see it's pretty much the same color here. You can add more orange. You're aiming for kind of like a caramely color. Caramely orange. If you want it to be more orange, you can add more orange. But again, it's equal parts orange and yellow. And then you're adding white, a tiny bit of white and a tiny bit of black. You might need more white, but you want to get to about, that tan color. I'm going to just show you what it looks like on here. So this is pretty much the color that I have. That's the color I'm aiming for. So go ahead and keep mixing that color. I know it'll take a second here, but no rush. I'm gonna go grab my charger real quick. All right, everybody. So what I'm gonna do now, is plug in my laptop, but let's see here. There we go. So I'm gonna start using this color that I just made to fill in my white spots around the eyes. You can honestly do the whole thing. Just try to follow the shape of the head. Short little flicks, kind of almost like eyebrows on the sides. But again, I'm just using that color. Again, you can use orange by itself. If you're having trouble creating that color, you can just use orange by itself and add a little bit of white. It'll give the same effect, but I always try to mix the colors and promote mixing the colors. I feel like it does a lot better. So I'm doing that, and then I'm doing kind of like the unibrow section. Flicking upwards and flicking downwards, just making sure that you're pretty much covering up all white space that we started with, except for the eyes. So you can see where we're at. A lot of it has to be done with white here now. That's what's going to be our next step. We have a lot of texture here, but we want to make it more, a little bit more skinny. So, whoops. So what I'll end up doing there is just sticking with this here, sticking with this color. Alrighty. All right, everybody. So what we're going to do now, you can either use your medium brush or you can use your large brush. This is the last time we're going to use the large brush. But what I like to do is, if you have a large brush like this, you can see that if you turn it, sideways like this, you can see that it's got a really, really nice sharp chisel right here. Really, really nice. So it's pretty sharp. It's good for creating short or long, narrow textures, skinny textures. So what I'll end up doing is I'll end up grabbing white just on the chisel here and doing downwards brush strokes because I have this really sharp hairline chisel to work with. If you don't have this chisel here, you can work with your detail brush. But I do recommend the other way, doing it through large brush. I know it's kind of intimidating, but I do recommend that way. So I just got on my chisel. It doesn't have to be on the whole brush. I actually added a lot there. But just using the chisel now, you'll see I'm going to do it over all of the lighter gray. All of the lighter gray. I'm actually going to start at the bottom here. Doing it over all of the lighter gray. Just flicking down or following the shape. Following the shape of the shape of the Porg's body. So just following that all the way through. This is going to take a second also. But just focusing on that downwards brush stroke. So again, we're just doing these white brush strokes over the lighter gray. This is not going to be over the wings and the top of the head. So again, everybody, don't worry about rushing this. It is going to take a second. I'm about a little bit more than halfway done, maybe 3/4. But just focusing on each of those brush strokes by itself. The more that you focus on them individually and stacking them right next to the next one, the better the texture is going to look. It's kind of coming together there. Move up to the right side of the face. So funny. It actually reminds me kind of like an Ewok. Really, really tiny, scruffy one. Just right now without the eyes and everything. That was funny. There we go. At the very end, you can always add more. I always tell everybody that. You don't have to just stick with this. But this is a nice base to work with and work off of. You know, you can add a little bit more gray right here if you wanted to blend it together. But more or less, this is kind of where you want to be at. Oh, got a little bit of orange in there. Wipe that off. This is pretty much where you want to be as far as the white from the gray. So on and so forth. Touch that up a little bit there. All right, so let's add a little bit more structure here because it's kind of looking like a blob at this point. What I'm gonna have everybody do is go ahead and just hold up a thumbs up if you're done. Go ahead and hold up a thumbs up on the screen if you're done. I'll call out your name if I can see that you're done. Awesome. Stephanie, I see you're still working. Awesome, Partida fam. Kennedy, thank you very much. Awesome. Very nice, everybody. Okay. Looks like Stephanie's still working a little bit. Maybe Ariana. Ariana and Natalie, if you want to just tell me that you're done in the chat, then I'll move forward. About one more minute. Okay, cool. I can give you a minute. Awesome, Jackie. Thank you so much. Very nice, everybody. Okay, Ariana, I'm going to give you about a minute here. There really is no rush. It's really funny because I'll just talk to you a second here, but it's really funny because this, if I didn't know where this was going, I'd say this doesn't look anything like what we're painting here, but it really does. It's pretty much done, honestly. There's a little bit more texture that could be had, you know, but the eyes and the mouth are pretty much the whole thing. There could be a little bit more blending up here, but I mean, that's subjective. You could do that if you wanted to. That's kind of up to you. As far as the eyes, if you wanted to at the end, again, this is going to be up, so you can bring this golden color a little bit down further. You can see on what we have here. I might just do that right now to get it over with. But if you like where yours is at, then, you know, by all means, you can keep it there. It's really not going to matter. It's totally a matter of preference to you. If you feel like it really needs it in a certain place, then you should add it. You definitely should add it. Right on. Okay, so Ariana, if you're still working, that is absolutely okay. I'm gonna move on to the eyeballs here, and those will take about a second. So, oh, you're done now. Perfect, perfect timing. Excellent. So let's move on to the eyes. Those will be pretty quick, I want to say. So for this, whenever we're using just plain old black paint, I tend to use a smaller brush, just because even me, I've been painting for a long time, but I still make mistakes all the time. So I don't like to use a big brush like this when filling in smaller spaces. So I'll either use the tiny brush or I'll use the medium brush. For me personally, I like a brush that is just large enough to fill in the space quickly, but not too large that I might go outside the lines, and not too small to where it might take forever. I'll have to go back to my palette maybe like 10 times or so. So I'll probably just have to do this once, honestly. But I'm basically just going right over the outlines that I have for my eyeballs. If you've covered this whole shape and you don't have these white cutouts right here, all you're gonna do is, I mean, you're pretty much guessing here. But it's gonna be a lot easier for you once you've done one eyeball. It's gonna be a lot easier for you to fill in the other one. So I got that one there, and I'm gonna start this one about here. Make sure it's not too off. Nice. Hey, that's pretty good. Any space on the outside that you feel needs to be filled in, like you can see there's a tiny bit of white space right there. Tiny, tiny, tiny bit of white space. You can always fill that in at the very end. We are going to put white around the eyeballs. But if you really feel like it's missing something, please don't hesitate to fill that in either at the end or right now, really quickly if you need to. But you can already see that the eyes making a huge difference in the shape and in the anatomy. You're able to recognize it a little bit more, or a lot more for that matter. Right on. So you're just drawing out the eyes. Go ahead and fill them in. Drawing out the eyes and filling them in. And once you're done with that, go ahead and switch to your detail brush. We're not just there yet, but go ahead and switch to your detail brush once you're done. We're going to use white. Excuse me, we're going to use black paint again. Alrighty, everybody. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start making the mouth. Now, this is it's a lot easier than it looks. But again, we're using the small brush just so that we can make sure we're putting black paint where we want it to go, as opposed to a larger brush that's harder to get paint exactly where you want it. So this is a more precise brush to put it in just the places that we want. So I'm going to make 2 dots here. I'm going to make 2 dots for the corners of the mouth. I'd say that this mouth is lower on the head, but not too low. Like it shouldn't be down here. These dots shouldn't be down here. They should be more like right here. You know, that's kind of going to be up to you. Also, I'm just going to kind of go for it. So I got 2 dots there. Those 2 dots that I just made, here are representing these corners. So you have 2 dots, and I mean, they look like they have sad faces. They look really sad. I'm not sure if they're actually sad, but that is the face that you're making, or that I am making for following the original, at least. If you would like to make a smiley face, you are absolutely more than welcome to. You're just going to reverse what I'm doing. So you're going to do smiley faces. But just to follow at least the anatomy that I've seen, all I'm going to do is bring this over. Extend it a little bit. So a line like that. And then you're going to do another one on top. But the way that you're going to connect these is you're going to use the same dots. So the same ends over here. You're using the same ends. But in the middle on top, it's going to go higher. And you can see I'm putting that little dot in the center there. It's kind of funky. Let's move that closer. There we go. You can see that dot in the center. That's where my second line is going to go. So I'm going to just do this on both sides. That. And then bring it over a little bit. And like that. And then you can just fill it in. Make sure you're filling it in with a small brush. And make sure you're not using too much paint. We do want this inside to dry. So there we go. Pretty much spot on there. Your paintings do take a time to evolve, everybody. So if you ever start to get discouraged, maybe about halfway through a painting or even less, I mean, you could be closer to the end of the painting and still not realize it, but you should definitely wait until you get to the end, you know, to give yourself or to take, you know, never take credit away from yourself. Because these paintings are not, they're not easy. You know, painting is not a very simple thing to do. I mean, it's very fun and it's very light, but it takes talent. So you should be proud of what you're doing, whatever it is. So, you know, if it took this long to get here, just keep in mind you got here. You got to this point, and you are on your way to the end of the painting. You know, don't be hard on yourself because um, you do deserve credit. This is a difficult painting, and it's an accomplishment. Now you can do the nose. They're just 2 little. I mean, here I'm gonna point this down here, but they're 2 little lines, I guess, just quick little lines, kind of slanted in right over the top of the mouth. 2 little lines. I've seen them painted a lot of different ways. Like some people paint circles. The mouths are, different sometimes. Even the eyes. There are so many. When I did the Baby Yoda painting, there were so many different designs and shapes of him. Um, so don't be afraid to create your own shapes here. Now the last thing I'm going to do for the face. The last thing that I'm going to do for the face is I'm going to go ahead. The eyes should be dry. At least the outside of the eye should be dry. I'm going to grab a little bit more white here. But what I'm going to do is outline the eyes, the black eyes. You can see it's kind of like a white. I'm getting a phone call. Do not know who that was. Sorry about that. So what I'm going to do is, you can see that I outlined in kind of a lighter gray. It actually just turned to lighter gray because my eyes weren't dry when I was painting the original. Oh. Let's see here. Sorry about that. Don't know how to turn my screen back on. Give me 1 second, everybody. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's see. Very nice, Jackie. That's awesome. Very nice. That's cool. Right on. That looks awesome. Okay, so what we're gonna do, I'm just gonna outline my eyeballs. I saw this in a lot of the paintings that I researched in order to paint my own original to teach you guys. And I always saw these kind of white outlines around the eyes. So I got that one.
Yeah. We're currently out of white.
You're currently out of white?
Yeah.
So it's not 100% necessary to have white around the eyes. Let me think. What could you do? You could always do gold around the eyes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. If you have any more light gray too, you could do light gray. But I'm assuming that you're just completely out of any lighter colors. So you could use that gold orange color around the eyes. It's not 100% necessary, but if you have that lighter gray, it will work. If you feel like you have a little bit more white, you can mix some water with it sometimes, but it's up to you. There's a bunch of options. Alrighty. Now I just create really small little short brush strokes straight downwards for the teeth. They're kind of spaced apart evenly, but this adds quite a bit to your character because they're known for their tiny little showing teeth. So go ahead, those little teeth. Add those little teeth. So you add those little teeth, and what we're going to do is also add the highlight in the eyes. So you can do it this way. You can do it a different way if you want to, but I'm doing kind of a curved brush stroke to follow the top of the eye, pressing down and then kind of flicking off. So like this. Like that. And then the same thing on the other side. See if I can do it the same way. A little bit thicker. So something like that. You can switch it up if you want to. But I saw that shape the most. Now the very last thing that I'm gonna do is add color down to the bottom there with our brownish color that we made. If it kind of dried out, or if you lost some of it, or you need to remix it, remember all I'm doing, let's see if I can show you my palette down here. Oh, I kind of can. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is add a little bit of yellow. You can see how messy I am over here. A little bit of yellow, a little bit of orange, equal parts. That pretty much gets you to a bright orange. Now I add white, a tiny bit of black, and you can kind of go from there. Add more yellow if it's too dark. Add more orange with it, and then add more white. And you should start to get to the color that you need. Again, if you've ran out of white, you can just do orange and yellow. You should be totally fine with that color. But I'm going to add this to the legs. There we go. So let's see, I'm just going to add a little bit in there, a little more detail. Alrighty, everybody. So this is home stretch right here. There are a lot of things that you could still do with this painting. As far as the basic or the base of what we want to add or what we need to add, that's pretty much it. I mean, you can add shadowing as much as you want to. It's not necessary. I added a little bit of shadowing to the original. Like a couple things that you could do. You could add darker hairs down here, really dark gray or black. You can add some more darkness to increase the contrast of the overall picture. So I added dark brown on the outsides here, some black on the top. But for the most part, that's about it. I did add feet down here. I didn't really like how they looked, but you can add feet still to the bottom here. Kind of like wiggly little shapes, kind of like half circles almost. We do have little feet. But yeah, I'll add a couple more things here while you're still working. You can kind of follow me if you'd like to. This painting is going to be up until, let's see, what time is it right now? 6:41. So I'll probably leave it up until about 7. If anybody's done, you're more than welcome to leave the meeting. You're absolutely more than welcome to leave the meeting. I am just going to keep painting here, adding some texture and touching it up a little bit more, but that's about it, everybody. Thank you for painting with me this time, too. Didn't have as high of an attendance, but that's totally okay. I am doing this pretty much for me. This is my full-time job right now. When I have, or when we're not in quarantine, under quarantine, I do this full-time. I'm doing this maybe like 3 to 4 times a week. So I still do it just kind of for myself. But it helps me to stay, having to stay inside. You're welcome, Stephanie. Thank you very much. But when I do it, or just doing it for me, it's enough therapy for me. It's a good time for me. I have a passion for it. So having you guys here painting with me also helps with that. Donations are absolutely accepted, 100% not mandatory. But I have information for that on my Instagram and on my Facebook. Usually in the last post, you'll see it. But yeah, thank you again, everybody. I'm still going to keep painting here. I'm going to have this painting up so that you can see. For those of you who are watching this recorded version, thank you also. That's probably the end of the recorded version here. For those of you who are still, or who are painting with me live here, again, I'm going to post this at about 5:30. I'll post this at about 7:30. Post this at about 7:30. So you will be able to see all of this. Play it back if you want to paint it again or do something different. Yeah. So go ahead and keep painting. Enjoy the painting. Again, if you are done, you're more than welcome to leave the meeting if you'd like to. Otherwise, I'll probably just end it within the next, 10 to 15 minutes, depending on if everybody's done. And then I'm just going to add a couple more things here. Again, more contrast. More little hairs at the top. It's so funny. Oops. Here. A little more texture down there. Some darker brown, maybe. Even darker. Even darker. Dark brown also, everybody, you can just make dark brown with some black and orange. Black and orange will make you some dark brown. It'll go really nicely with this golden color or the orange color that you got. Maybe add some dark gray down at the bottom too. Downwards brush strokes. Yeah. Cool. A little bit more fluffy.